As a sequel to the staffing and coordination, I will discuss about coordination in details in this lecture. What we discussed as a preview, what we discussed in the previous lecture, we discussed about the human resource management process of recruitment, then selection, human resource planning, job analysis, description and specification, and further we discussed about various selection techniques, employee orientation, various training techniques, management development programs. We also discussed about the compensation, performance appraisal, performance management system, and then we will discuss about, then we further discussed about human resource management practices in domestic organizations and the global organizations. So, lastly we will conclude this session with discussing about coordination of employees is important in organizations, as an organization efficiently works when there is interfunctional interdependence of various parts, various employees in the organization. With this background, I will introduce what is coordination all about. I will discuss about each and every important aspect of how an organization is viewed as a systems view. So, earlier discussions have emphasized that an organization is like an open system. So, what is an open system? An organization has been defined as consisting of input processes, a conversion process and an output process. So, what are the various elements of input process, conversion and output? Input allows each organizational functions to handle relationship with outside stakeholders, so that organization can effectively manage its specific environment. Then conversion is transforming inputs into outputs, and output allows an organization to effectively dispose of finished goods and services to the external environment. So, let us understand how the organization as a whole functions as an open system and not as a closed system. So, input consists of human capital, managerial processes or management methods, technology and other resources. So, all these land, capital, resource, finance, all these are resources for an organization, and the goal of the organization is to effectively or optimally utilize these resources, and so that there is minimum of wastage and the organization is able to get the desired output or desired goal, which will in return earn huge profit for the organization, which will also be consumed by people at large, which will help in creating brand image for the organization. The products and services, the products, services, profit, satisfaction to the customers, these are the goals of the goal integration. The goals of the organization should be attained within a period of, within a particular time period. So, the inputs are processed by, or inputs are converted by various management processes. There is a transformation of input into output through the managerial processes. The transformation process, what happens in the transformation process? There is a strategic, the goals which are set are again converted into the goals, the qualitative and the quantitative goals are converted through the transformation process into output. So, let us discuss in details how this mechanism works. What type of goals an organization has? As we earlier discussed that goals of an organization can be quantitative and qualitative goals. What is quantitative? Quantitative is how many products will be produced, what is the production target, what is the target of profit to be earned by the organization. So, it is quantified in terms of number, a specific number. Qualitative goals are those goals which cannot be quantified as numbers, but they are subjective in nature, like satisfaction of customers, quality products. So, satisfaction and quality is a subjective measure, subjective measure. So, the organization plans the plans how it will initiate the how it will transform the inputs into desired output. So, in strategic planning, what happens? The organization's plans, like the short and long term plans, are converted into some sequential steps of actions. Then so basically strategic planning means the some action plans which can be executed by the managers. So, there is a like human resource planning and development. So, what consists of strategic planning? For a business plan, it can be cost minimization, the product should have minimum of wastage, there should be minimum of the cost can be controlled. The second one can be innovation in product and services, and then targeting a niche segment of customers, or which is otherwise called the focused strategy. So, strategic plans can be of varied in nature, like an organization wide plan, or which can be the growth strategy of an organization, or say or corporate level. The strategic planning can be at the level of organization, corporate strategy, it can be business strategy, and it can be functional strategy. What is corporate strategy? Corporate strategy basically is how an organization can expand its business to different territories. Growth, it can be growth strategy, then growth by differentiation, growth by strategic alliance with other firms, growth by vertical integration, horizontal integration. So, these are various types of growth strategy. The firm can also have stability strategy with stable state of affairs, not expanding beyond a certain geographic area, not including or not diversifying into different businesses, not expanding its existing product lines. So, the firm can also have stable state of affairs. The third type of strategy is when the firm is incurring huge loss or minimal loss, when the amount of loss is significant or say minimal or say less significant. So, organization in strategic planning, there are different types of plans being executed, different types of strategies being planned at corporate level, at business or industry level, and at functional level. At corporate level, the organization adopts growth strategy, stability strategy, and renewal strategy. Growth strategy is when the firm intends to expand its business, existing business, through having new products and services, expanding to different geographical territories, or by acquiring new businesses through say merger and acquisition, through strategic alliance, or through vertical integration, diversification, and so on. And in some situations, the firm also maintains its stable state of affairs by not expanding its business, not increasing its market size, not having or not intending to increase large volume of products and services. So, there the firm takes up stability strategy or decides to have a stability strategy. Similarly, in some situations the firm may have incurred crisis like situation, or may have incurred loss, a significant amount of loss, or say the loss which is minimal in nature. So, the firm adopts renewal strategy to restructure, to refurbish its existing plans of actions. So, what we discussed is the strategic planning includes the corporate strategies like growth, stability and renewal. Similarly, in a particular business, in an industry or a business, there can be say cost minimization, innovation and focus strategy. Cost minimization, using a strategy of minimal cost by not investing too much on the existing products, adopting or using less of resources or investing less cost on resources, resource utilization. Innovation is the existing product need to be redesigned, the product need to be redeveloped so that it is having some kind of inherent competitive advantage. Then third strategy is adopting both cost or innovation strategy to focus on a specific segment of customers. The organization is like an open system which takes resources from external environment in terms of land, capital, machinery, human resources, technology, which these resources help in conversion of the raw materials to a finished form in the form of products, services to be consumed by the customers, to be consumed by the external environment. And the ultimate objective of organization is either to have a quantitative or a qualitative goal. Number of products to be produced, the amount of services to be offered, so that it can in return it can provide value to the customers. So, the objective of organization can be either quantitative or objective in nature or qualitative or subjective in nature. Qualitative goals could be satisfaction of customers, providing quality services to the customers, quality goods to the customers, serving customers, having a brand image or brand name for the company. So, these are qualitative goals. So, what I wanted to say is, during the process of conversion of input to output, the organization in the conversion process, there is the conversion is the transformation of inputs into outputs. It depends on various parts of the organization. There is a need for coordination, and an organization cannot do this immense amount of transformation of input to output without coordination. It is not possible. It cannot execute things, it cannot execute the process of conversion being in silos. So, which otherwise means that an effective management function will be carried out when there is interaction between different parts, different functional departments, divisions, different hierarchical positions in the organization. So, be it the vertical differentiation or the horizontal differentiation within the organization, there has to be a coordination among different parts. So, which means that management functions, planning, organizing, staffing and controlling works in an open systems. In other words, it cannot exist in silos and must interact with one another as well as other stakeholders in external environment. So, the organization within its own boundaries as well as beyond the boundaries of organization, like interaction with the stakeholders, the government machineries, the government, the media, the technology, the political, there has to be coordination with external stakeholders as well, like the public pressure groups, media, the financial institutions, banking services, government organizations, government policies, all this will have an influence on conversion, or all this will have an influence on the organization, and an organization can effectively function if there is interfunctional interdependence of various functions within the organization, various divisions within the organization. So, with this objective, we will discuss about what is coordination. This is where coordination concept is of paramount importance, is paramount for efficient and effective working of organizational system. So, then we will discuss about what happens in input process and what is the conversion process and output process and what is the finished good. So, I will discuss about how the work flows in an organization. If we look at the input stage, input comes from suppliers in advance and are stockpiled until they are needed. So, the workflow with advanced manufacturing technology, we can discuss how the workflow happens in mass production, the workflow in different organizations. In the workflow of mass production, inventory is used to protect the conversion process and to prevent slowdowns or stoppage in production. In the input stage, we can see that input comes from suppliers in advance and is stockpiled until they are needed. So, the inventory is stored somewhere in the warehouse. The inputs are procured from the suppliers, as we discussed earlier, that in the conversion process or in the organization as an open system, the organization cannot efficiently perform unless and until there is interfunctional coordination within the departments, as well as there is a coordination with different stakeholders in the external environment. So, in the external environment, there is an influence of government, the suppliers agencies, the investment firms, the banking institutions and the media and various public pressure groups. Various stakeholders, the society is also part of the stakeholders. So, how does it happen? The inputs are procured from the suppliers much in advance and they are stockpiled until they are needed. They are stored in a warehouse. So, there has to be coordination between the supplier and the inventory where it is or the warehouse where it is stored. And then in the conversion process, conversion stage, what happens? Inputs are assembled, they are assembled into sub assemblies or sub units and are put in inventory again for use by the next workstation. So, there are different departments. In each department some inventory is kept and which will be brought together to the next workstation for compilation of the work. So, work in progress, the workstation 1 to workstation 2 to workstation 3, there is an inventory always kept in between and there has to be and which will be coordinating between one department and another department. So, in the output stage what happens? Output stage, the finished products are stockpiled. Once the inputs are assembled, they are in through different conversion stage, they are assembled in different subunits or sub assemblies. The final finished good is stored in a warehouse which will be then packaged, labeled and will be ready to be offered to the external environment in the market. So, the finished products are stockpiled until they are needed and they cannot be until and unless there is a demand for it. So, they are eventually shipped. Lastly, when the entire product is manufactured, after it is packaged, it is labeled and the brand name is it is named and then it is shipped to the market and then it is available to the customers. So, in this example what we have discussed is the workflow during the mass production stage. The inventory is used to protect the conversion process and prevent any slowdown or stoppage in production. So, there has to be a continuous production, so it will not stop the work in between. So, there has to be a coordination and there is an inventory which is kept in place to have a continuous supply of the various components at different points of time, as and when it is required by different units, different manufacturing units, or as required by different departments. The second example that we will discuss is the workflow with advanced manufacturing technology. No inventory buffers are used between workstations. So, input comes from suppliers as they are needed, and then there is a conversion which happens. Inputs are assembled into sub assemblies which are then used at once by the next workstation, and in the output stage finished products are sent immediately to customers as ordered. So, in another there is a continuous flow, there is a in advanced manufacturing unit, there is a coordination between the workstation 1, 2 and 3. So, there is a continuous flow. So, what I wanted to conclude through this is coordination is a process which ensures the smooth interplay of various functions of management. Without coordination, there would be stoppage of work. So, coordination is the essence of management because it permeates all levels of management. It is implicit and inherent in all functions of management like planning, organizing, directing, controlling. Coordination implies the orderly synchronization of efforts to provide the proper amount, timing and directing of execution in harmonious and unified actions in a stated objective. So, what we have understood is coordination is inherent in all management functions. What are the main highlights here? Coordination is important in all functions of management. Coordination is orderly synchronization of efforts. There is a order of synchronization or synchronization of orders of efforts. Then it is to provide the proper amount, time and direction of execution in harmonious and unified actions. So, coordination implies unity of action. Features of coordination. Coordination is not a distinct or separate function, but it is very essence of management. It is an important part of management. The basic responsibility of management is coordination. Coordination rests on unity of action or purpose. So, what we discussed is coordination is important, is an important function of management. This is one important criteria of management. Coordination depends on unity of action. There has to be unity of action. Each individual in an organization will have an individual goal. So, individual can only be able to execute tasks when there is coordination of efforts. Individuals' goals need to be synchronized with organizational goals. Synchronization is important in coordination. Unity of action and purpose is important. It is a dynamic process. Which means that it is continuous and an ongoing process. It is not a static process, but it is continuous process. It is a dynamic process. When there are changes in the, why it is dynamic process? When there are changes in the external environment, the changes need to be incorporated in organization as what we discussed in organization as an open systems. So, taking a sequel from the view of organization as an open systems. So, any sudden change in the external environment, be it political, economic, technological changes in the external environment will have an impact on the various processes, sub processes within the organization, and an organization will be successfully able to attain its objectives or goals if it gives way or if it accepts or adapts the changes and accommodates it in its various processes. So, it is a dynamic process which is continuous and an ongoing process. So, if the organization ignores any changes in the external environment, it would not be able to successfully implement those changes and would not be able to be efficient and effective, will not be able to address to the changing requirements of business environment. So, a progressive organization need to rest on cooperation, unity of action, and should also be dynamic and continuous. So, required in group efforts, it is, as we have understood, that no organization can successfully function if they are working in silos. If the organizations are not able to effectively interact with each other, if there is no interaction between different departments and functional units, then the organization would not be able to maintain its sustainability or will not be able to be sustainable. So, it is required to have group effort, not an individual effort. So, each department, each unit in the organization should work in synchronization. There has to be, say, a group effort, group commitment and not an individual commitment if an organization has to be sustainable. So, the common purpose of getting organizational objectives achieved, necessary coordination is necessary for all levels in the organization. Coordination otherwise is like a systems view. So, what we discussed here, an organization can coordination is important for an organization, as we have discussed earlier also. Coordination is important because an organization's viewpoint, widely accepted in the present management concept, is a systems approach to management, which rests on the principles of coordination, where the inputs are procured from external environment in the forms of the inputs like raw materials, resources, human capital and the technology. So, all these resources, the finance, all these resources are converted into finished goods and services which are to be consumed by the external environment, which are to be offered to the customers, and there is an entire process of conversion of various management processes where there is strategic planning, where there are hierarchy of objectives. So, while setting objectives, action planning, implementation, control and appraisal, the organization has, the various parts of organizations are working in coordination with each other in order to attain its objectives. So, what we discussed is coordination is the essence of management. Coordination is not a distinct or a separate function, but it is the responsibility of management. It is a heart of coordination is unity of action or purpose. So, next lecture we will be discussing about what are the various types of coordination, and we will also discuss about the management techniques or principles of coordination. With this, I would conclude the lecture here. Thank you.